Okay, so let's talk about people that are moving here from out of state.
Absolutely. Yeah, let's talk about lending options. I mean, I think many people I've talked to think that, hey, do I need to be in Texas and working?
Yeah.
So they're in California, right? A pretty hot topic right now, moving from California. And we'll use that as an example because I love California. Hey, I'm in California. I'm allowed to work remote. Could I buy a home in Houston as my primary home? Yes, you can. So if your company will say you can work remote, we just need a letter saying you work remote. You can move anywhere, and it'll be a primary home. So you'll have low interest rate, low down payment, the best loan possible. Right? So that's part of it. That's one that's very easy. The other one is if you're getting transferred. Absolutely. We just need a letter.
Like within the same company, you're saying?
Within the same company. So like they're gonna move you to Houston. Can I buy a home before I start that job there because I have my letter saying I'm gonna get transferred? Mm-hmm. Absolutely. That's a possibility, right? Hey, I have a job lined up in Houston, but I'm not starting for 2 months. Can I buy a house in Houston in advance of starting that job? On a conventional loan, you absolutely can. We just need the offer letter, which we do all the time. So there's a lot of examples where if you know you're going there, those are your options. 100% can get done, and we do it all the time.
Yeah, so many people, though, I'll get phone calls from people coming from out of state, and they'll say, well, I think we're going to have to live in temporary housing until we can buy. And I'm like, why do you think that? They're like, well, we just assumed. And I'm like, no, you definitely can purchase. You might have to get extra, the letter that you're talking about from the companies of employment, but it can be done.
Yeah, or like as an offer letter, many lenders will tell somebody you need to be here working and have the first pay stub or the first 30 days of pay stubs. On a conventional loan, that's not true. So just the offer letter, like, hey, so-and-so is going to hire me. I'm going to make $100,000 a year. Here's my offer letter. Fantastic. We take that and can close, and then you're moved in before you even start. But let's talk about if all those are not options. What if you're there in California, but you want to move to Houston, okay? Mm-hmm. So one option is to do what's called a second home, okay? So you buy the home.
And this is, let me just clarify.
Sure.
This is somebody that they live out of state and they want to move to the area, but they don't have a job lined up here.
Correct. So they want to buy in.
They are employed in California.
Right.
Okay. That's right. Is that what you're saying?
Correct. Exactly. They want to buy before they quit their job in California.
Got it. Okay.
So they want to buy that home in advance because their thought process is, and I've seen this many times, I want to buy a home there, get settled, then worry about the job. They're financially strong enough. They have savings. They're not paycheck to paycheck.
Right.
It's a perfect
situation. They're not trying to mix it all together.
Correct. They want to do one step before the other one, not the cart before the horse and that type of stuff. So the person's in California, working, has a job there, can't work remote because like we just talked about, if they can work remote, we get that letter.
Yeah, then it wouldn't be an issue.
Then it's fine.
Right.
So they're there working. They can buy the home here in Houston as what's considered a second home, okay, with a minimum down payment of 10%.
So whether they own in California or they're leasing, this would be their second home that they're buying in Houston.
Correct. Now, here's where the gray area comes in, and you and I talked about this earlier, right? Is the definition of a second home is it's not being your primary residence.
A second home doesn't mean you own two houses.
Correct.
It just means it's a second residence.
Correct.
Okay.
So many lenders will tell you you can't buy a quote unquote second home if you don't own a first home. That's not true. I've done loans where somebody in California lives with family and they bought a second home.
So they're living with family rent free. That's residence number one. Now they're going to buy the second home in Texas. And because they don't have any overhead with their current rent, they can qualify to buy.
Correct. Because in theory, you're only qualifying for one house.
Right.
So I've done a lot of examples. We have a guy now, he is in Chicago. He lives with family, but wants to buy the home here in advance of him moving because school's about to start. He needs to get his wife and their 2 kids down here. And that's his game plan. And we're using that exact situation. He lives with family. This is a quote unquote second home, putting 10% down payment, and we're going to close in advance of him quitting, and we're going to be able to close so they can start school.
Right. So he's going to acquire the house, be able to move in and everything, and then worry about his employment here.
Correct. To him, his priority is the kids starting school.
Absolutely.
Getting the family settled. He'll worry about employment after he gets here.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
That's an amazing option.
So so there's a lot of things going into buying out of state that you need to talk to somebody who knows their options. Will provide those. That's a lender, a realtor who specializes in this type of relocation.
Yeah.
Because otherwise they're going to tell you have to get a job here in advance, or you maybe need a pay
Oh
stub.
yeah, I hear that all the time. And that's a huge misconception, but it's also that somebody needs to know a lender that's willing to work magic and has access to these ideas.
Yep.
Honestly, that's what it comes down to, and isn't afraid to do it. Like, you have the experience and the capacity with you and your staff and everything to be able to execute it.
Well, and I think that's kind of where it's a corny term and it's overused a lot, is working with a true advisor.
Right.
But that's true. Like, I need a mortgage advisor who's going to say, look, the best plan to get you what you want looks like this. Let's do this.
Yeah.
Instead of not looking at all options or having their hands
A
tied.
loan officer, I mean, all they do is in my opinion, no offense to anybody, but it's essentially, you're kind of a paper pusher. It's the difference in a real estate agent and a consultant. I mean,
Right.
You can call somebody and be like, hey, how fast can you get my house on the market? People do that to me all the time. This just happened to me yesterday. I'm like, well, I can get it on the market in a few days if you really want that. But is that the best thing for you?
Yep.
Like, I can't truly take you through this process unless I learn everything you're willing to share, and then we make a game plan. So the same thing happens with lending. I mean, with the financing, I'm always like, the money and the financing is essentially the biggest part of the real estate deal, because the deal doesn't exist without it.
Right. Right.
And
You
so-
have to have that mapped out. My favorite clients in the world are the ones who know they're in a unique situation and say, hey, man, I need you to tell me how
Yes.
I can get done
Yes.
what my goals are.
Dream client.
Right.
Yeah,
Because then
yeah.
you're like, perfect. We're going to do
Instead
A,
of
B, and
telling
C.
you what they know.
Right. Or they think that they have to do it a way
Yeah.
that they've been told, which is not true.
Right.
Right.
Yeah.
And so it's 100% doable. I mean, it's a hot topic in Houston with as many people coming out of state. I've done people relocating from California, Seattle, Washington. We've had Virginia, Pennsylvania.
Yeah.
I mean, the list goes on and
Yeah,
on.
we just did somebody from New Jersey, California as well. I mean, all over the place.
Yep.
People want to be in Houston.
Houston is a place to be.
Yeah.